on, guys and gals? Hope everything is going so well with all of you guys, and that you've been enjoying some nice summer weather, and maybe seeing more people with the world starting to reopen again and going back to normal. I went to a family wedding this past weekend, and it almost felt like a dream that I was able to be there, considering what has been going on the last year or so. Great stuff, and looking forward to more. Anywho, though I was a little busy last weekend and school is wrapping up here in the next couple of weeks, I always, well, maybe not always, but I sometimes have time to release another episode of the podcast. And last week, I had the great privilege of being able to talk to Brett Park, who is one of the most talented artists that I've personally ever met, and is also the creator of the webcomic on Instagram, Thumbpaint. The essential question that Brett and I were able to discuss was how art has helped. What the essential question was, how has art helped you? We talked about everything related to Brett's very accomplished career thus far as an art content creator, his paintings, balancing art school and his personal art, his YouTube channel, and how social media can get to all of us in the worst possible ways. This interview was super fun to do, and it's always great to do interviews with fellow content creators because I feel like we can relate on a whole nother level. And it also helps that Brett is an awesome human being who's doing great things in the world and can't wait to see what else he does. But I hope you guys enjoy this episode of the podcast, and let's talk about some art, even though I can't personally draw for shit. So enjoy and cue it up.
There you go. Coming to you live from my parents' house. We got episode 23 of the Essential Question podcast. And today I have a very, very special guest. Our first artist on the podcast. When I mean like legit artist, someone who paints, does like really cool stuff, and is actually very talented in that area and doesn't just draw stick figures. We got Brett Park on the podcast. What's going on, Brett?
Hi, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for the intro. I'm not sure if I would call myself a really good artist, but I appreciate that compliment.
I mean, I'm gonna be linking his Instagram down below, so y'all decide for yourself. He is very, very talented in his own right.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So he just moved into LA, so big moves, big moves. How are you liking the city so far?
The city's great. I haven't gotten a real chance to check out the art scenes yet, but I'm really excited to do that. I just moved in about 4 or 5 days ago, so I'm excited to see more of the city for
Oh,
sure.
that should be fun. That should be fun. I watched your vlog on your empty apartment tour. So
Oh, no, no, no.
Wow, you
Right,
don't want
right,
me seeing
right.
your vlogs, bro? I had to. When
Yeah,
I saw your YouTube linked to your Instagram, I was like, okay, I gotta check out his YouTube game. But it's pretty fire. Your vlogs are pretty good. Your vlog game is on point.
thank you. We're getting there. We're trying. We're trying our
Yeah,
best here.
yeah. You'll get to the Emma Chamberlain status one day.
Emma Chamberlain. Oh my God, I was like trying to look for her because she had a pop-up store soon and for like Levi's. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you can leave that in because like a company name, but like
No, it's fine. I
yeah.
don't care. Not monetized yet, so
Love that. No, I feel that.
that's cool. So for the audience that doesn't really know who you are, give them like a couple sentence like Wikipedia summary on like who Brett is and like what do you do? Like what's your move? What do you do?
Yeah, for sure. I am a how do I describe myself? I am a 19-year-old artist that was from the Bay Area in California, and I just moved to LA. I mainly do webcomics, some traditional art here and there, and I'm currently a USC student majoring in comm and art. So I'm excited to see what I can do in college there. But yeah, just having a good time so far.
That's good. That's good. See, that was a good summary, bro. That was solid.
Maybe, maybe.
um, so you run an Instagram page called Thumb Paint for the audience that doesn't know, and he's got like tons and tons of followers. Brett is basically world famous at this point. Um, he's in the 100,000s for Instagram followers, so he's legit. So kind of give or were you always like super into art growing up? Like, how did that interest like come out of you, so to speak? Like, was it always there?
Yeah, so ever since like a young age, I definitely gravitated more towards the arts than my sister or like my parents ever did. But my real interest kicked in actually when I was second grade. Um, I didn't start drawing until this kid challenged me to draw like a dolphin. He was like known as the artist in our class, and he challenged me. He's like, "Hey, bro, like I can draw a dolphin better than you." I had never really drawn animals before, so we had a little competition. The whole class was watching. He beat me, made fun of me for it. It was a fun time, you know. And then I just went home and started drawing dolphins. And then I tried to re-challenge him later, but then he moved schools. But I just kept drawing since then.
That's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, it's
Hey,
tough.
I think we got to get a YouTube video up. Brett versus the second grade challenger
I
inspired
know,
him to do art. I think that would be a content piece right there.
for sure.
Yeah. So like after dolphins, you kind of just like were you like, oh, like I can draw other things too, and it just kind of progressed.
Yeah, it definitely started to progress. I tried to get more into like the art classes in middle school, tried to do some art classes in high school, but nothing ever too serious. Never did like um art outside. Mostly self-taught, I would say, and just from like books and stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like I mean, you kind of mentioned it, right? Like that whole idea of like you were never like, oh, like art is my legit career. Like you never thought of it like that. So like when was it like always a hobby and like when did that transition happen where it's like, oh shit, I can, I can paint for a living.
Yeah, I would say sophomore year when I started my webcomic account, Thumb Paint, it was kind of a I wouldn't say I thought of hobby like sorry. I wouldn't say I thought art as anything but a hobby to me. And I still think it is kind of a hobby. Definitely trying to slowly transition more into like, the career aspect because as I've seen so far, there's not too much money in the art community that I've seen so far. And so that'd be really hard to make a living off of. But I didn't really feel like I could potentially pursue art as a career until I started kind of gaining traction on Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think now like more than ever it's just like easier to blow up, cuz like people are like always I feel like people are like obsessed with those TikToks where it's like watch me recreate this painting in 30 seconds and it's like the whole like, time lapse and it just looks amazing. So it's like, it's like damn, I wish I
Well,
had that
yeah,
talent.
it's crazy. On TikTok, it's such like a powerful platform now, and you even see its influence on other social media platforms like Instagram, who just transitioned to Reels, Snapchat
Yeah.
with like their random thing that they're doing. What is it called? I'm not sure,
The
but
stories or whatever. Oh no, not
yeah, yeah,
stories.
like the spotlights, Snapchat spotlight.
Snapchat is
Yeah,
so confusing, bro. It
it's a
is
lot.
genuinely one of the most confusing like platforms. I just go on there and I'm like, what do like people get out of this? Like,
No, same, same.
very confusing platform. I don't know why it was so popular when I was in high school. I don't know if it was popular when you were in high school, but yeah, it's Snapchat's very confusing.
It's
Um,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah. So did you like? So like, what was that like first piece? Because I know you definitely. I was watching some of your YouTube videos, and you were like, "This art is so cringe," like blah blah blah. So like, what was like your first piece that you created where you're like, "Damn, that was like pretty good," and you like look back on it, and you're like, "Yeah, it's not as cringe as I thought."
Oh, oof, that's a hard question. I think honestly, I'm pretty much a pessimist. I would say I'm not too optimistic despite some of my comics being very like fluffy, lighthearted, and like positive. Maybe I'm just like projecting trying to be that person, but I'm really a more negative person. So when I look back, I really do cringe at everything. The only thing I was surprised by, I would say in the past year, is when I was sifting through old boxes, I found this clown drawing that I made in fifth grade. And I was like, oh, that's okay. And so then I just moved it to the side, saved it. Might do like a recreation video. We'll see. But
There you
yeah.
go. There you go. See, fifth grade. Sometimes the best things happen early, right? So you gotta,
Yeah.
yeah. Damn. But I've never personally been a very talented artist, as you can tell. And art history really has like never been my strength. But like, do you kind of like do artists take inspiration from other painters, or is it just like things you see in the outside world where you're like, oh, like let me express that through painting? Like, how does the inspiration aspect work? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think it's different for everyone. I personally don't dabble too much in like the art news and the art history so far, just because I haven't had like really great formal studying with that, even though there's so many resources online, I just haven't taken the time to do that yet. I mainly draw inspiration from like other artists that I see on social media and I guess the world around me. Like whenever I see a nice color palette or like a shirt that's like a graphic design logo, I always like take a picture of it to see it for later. But I guess I'm not sure who said this quote. It might have been like Billie Eilish or someone. But it was she was just talking about how like art creates art, and whether it's a podcast, social media thing, like you just create off of what you're known and inspired by, and it should happen like pretty organically, I'd say.
No, for sure. I definitely get that. I was just confused on like the inspiration thing because I was like, there's not like very many like like with music, like rappers will be like, oh, like I'm inspired by Tupac or Biggie or like and like athletes are like I'm inspired by X, Y, and Z. But like with artists, it's never like, oh, I'm inspired by Pablo Picasso. Like I've never heard that
No,
before,
yeah,
you know. So I
yeah,
was just like, oh, interesting.
yeah.
Um,
Like what inspired you to do this podcast?
this podcast, honestly, it was just like a variety of things. I think I give the credit to Amazon.com, honestly, because I was just like sifting through Amazon one day and I saw this starter mic set and I was like, huh, this could be fun. And then I just like skipped past it and then like the thought of a podcast kind of like popped in my head because I listened to a lot of podcasts and that kind of just kind of spiraled from there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty cool. Like never thought that like I would be able to like be in the position that I'm in today when it came to this like podcast. Like 23 episodes, damn, pretty good.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I was scrolling through and there have a lot of like some pretty cool people on here. I was like, oh wow, this is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been crazy so far. But this episode is not about me, it's about you, okay? Don't try to take the attention off yourself, Brett. Um,
I know.
so we grew up in the same area, those people that don't know, in the Bay. And you kind of know what the mentality is out here, it's grades first, everything second. Um,
Mhm.
so how did that play in effect in terms of like the way you saw art? Like, because like art is like very low down on the list of career options out here. You know this.
Yeah, I think it's the bottom of the barrel for everywhere,
For sure.
especially the Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess the nature of the Silicon Valley is very STEM oriented because there's obviously so much tech here. But for me, I never really thought too much about going into a STEM field because it never really interested me. My parents were always super supportive and never pushed me to like be a doctor, be a lawyer. I never had that external pressure from
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
So I was really fortunate to have the option to do whatever I wanted, and they really supported me with that. In high school, though, there's definitely a stigma of what you're trying to do. Everyone was trying to be a doctor and a lawyer. I'm sure you know, it's like, it's
Yeah.
insane. It's insane. And
Yeah.
so even when I was gonna major in communications, people were like, oof, like calm, really? Because
Did you
like
get
it's also like
looks?
the
Did you get looks? Like people would be like, "Oh, Brett."
yeah, no, I definitely did because people always look at the college name, which if it's not Ivy, they don't care.
Yeah,
And so
sure.
after, and even if it's Cornell, they don't care. So they see the college name and immediately they look at the major, and if it's not STEM, then they cross it off.
Yeah, even
So
if it's like an Ivy and you get in for like English, people will be like, "Oh, that's easy."
no, yeah, people are like,
It's
oh my
like,
gosh, you got into Stanford for gender studies, and then they just, I'm like, did you get into Stanford though?
yeah, it's like, "Oh,
No,
yeah, you're just salty because you didn't get in yourself." But
exactly.
whatever. It's high school was a time, man. I'm happy
It's
I'm
a
out of
fever
it.
dream. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of weird that you got that like last little bit of like college decisions like online, so you didn't really have to like deal with it in person, which like
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, dealing in person was not fun. There was like lots of drama at our high school too.
Oh,
Like
really?
yeah, dude. I remember okay, so this is not to go off of topic, but this was like March or April of my senior year. I walk into the office and there's like gotta be like 10 or 15 kids just sitting outside, like panicking straight up. I'm like, what is going on? Like, is this like the purge? Like, what's going to happen? And like, I literally like look at the nurse and she's just like, she looks at me and she's like, oh, it's Ivy Day. This is normal. I'm
Oh
like,
my
oh my
God.
Lord. Like this. I literally like had to hold in laughter. I was like, okay, this is jeez. But that
Yeah.
gives you kind of insight into where we went to high school. But
No, yeah. It's so cutthroat. So cutthroat.
yeah. Um, okay, so let's talk a little bit about Thumb Paint. So kind of like what was the initial inspiration of this character, so to speak, and like how did you like get to the stage where you're like, screw it, I'm gonna put my art on social media? Because that's a big step.
Yeah, for sure. To me, there was a lot of comfort in putting my art on social media rather than me. I always wanted to do something where people were kind of watching me. I was kind of not obsessed with fame in a sense because I don't really care about that stuff. I was just a I just wanted people to see my art in whatever expression that was. I don't feel like I'm tied down to a real medium yet. And so whether that's video content creation or just art in general, I don't really care. I just want people eyes on my work. And so for me, there was comfort in having a character that wasn't myself. And so I just did a little representation of me, which was a thumbprint. So I thought that that is already an inherently unique symbol to everyone. And so that could be like my thing. So I created a character out of that. But what inspired it initially, I guess, was me just wanting to have a voice in a different community. I Even though I was really involved in school and stuff, I was super big on soccer outside of school, and I didn't really talk at all. Like people thought I was mute for a hot minute, I'm pretty sure. And so for me, it was just kind of to voice like different thoughts and opinions I had through like the character thumb rather than in person in the real world.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I mean, like I was gonna ask you the next question was just like, what's the significance of like a thumb? Why'd you choose a thumb? Is it just because like everyone has one?
Yeah, everyone has a unique like thumbprint. I think it's kind of cheesy. Um, it kind of manifested into more of this idea of like individuality rather than it did at the start. I feel like at the start it was more so like, oh, everyone can relate to thumbprints because we all kind of did finger painting as kids, and so
Mm-hmm.
that was something people could already like see and identify with. But as kind of like the message started going more and more towards the individuality route, I kind of not rewrote history in a sense, but took the meaning and pushed it more towards that unique aspect, rather than like childhood nostalgia type beat.
Yeah. No, I think it could work both ways. It's almost like a double entendre in terms of meaning, right? Where you can it can be like a symbol, but it can also be kind of like you were saying, like everyone's thumbprint is unique as I stare at mine right now. So
I know, yeah.
I was like, huh, how does mine look? But yeah, no, I totally get you on that. So like like when you started Thumb Paint, like was it kind of were you already putting art out on socials at that point, or was like Thumb Paint kind of your first venture into doing that?
In middle school, I did a lot of the typical Instagram art. I'm not sure if you know about it, but in the art community on Instagram specifically, people draw the stereotypical like realistic lips, and the lips are biting something. I don't know if you've seen
Right,
them. Like
right. I think I've seen it. Yeah.
yeah, or like the multicolored hair that's in a braid. Like
Yeah.
I was doing those type of things, and it was not creative at all. I thought I was being creative, but it wasn't. And so that
It's
was
like
in
all
middle
of us in middle
school.
school. It's okay.
Yeah, we all thought we were different, but we're not.
Yeah. Oh man. So yeah, I mean, I guess this was like your first like legit like okay, like I'm gonna do something here.
Yeah.
Um, so like what was your initial goal with Thumb Paint? Like, did you even think about the following? Were you just kind of like, oh, I'm just gonna put this out there for fun, like this is just a fun little project, or like, and how did your kind of goal with the whole thing with Thumb Paint just change over time?
To me, it was definitely a side project. I just really love this. Um, I always really like cartoons, and I just want to make a cartoon character of my own and just have it in its own world too, I guess. And so I didn't really care too much about a following rather than just creating a space on my page that was kind of my own, but still having people watch it, obviously, because that would be nice. I feel like some people are like, oh my God, I just post on social media for me, but I think that's inherently like flawed because if you're posting it, you're definitely expecting people to see it rather than just keeping it in your drawer somewhere. And so it was definitely in the back of my mind, but it didn't come to the forefront until I got reposted by a couple art pages or webcomic like reposting accounts. And then I saw like the numbers come in and I was like, oh, like this kind of like addicting. And it was really easy to get obsessed with it. So I
Yeah.
kind of fell down that path for a hot sec and then I kind of slowly pulled myself back from it.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
No, we'll talk about that later because I did some research, Brad. I did my homework, so
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So we'll talk a little bit about all the because I read a couple I know where to get because you went to Monte Vista, so it's like I just look at like the high school newspaper databases for like kids I interview like around here, and I'm just like, okay, like let me just search their name up in the high school newspaper, and like articles will come up about their like OG origin stories, and so I'm like, all right, this is where it all starts. It's like real journalistic work out here. Um,
Yeah, for sure. Respect
um,
it. Respect the hustle.
I gotta do what you gotta do, man. But like, is so like looking at thumb paint, like I went through and looked through a lot of the posts. Like, is it kind of based on your life experiences, or is it based on the experiences of like an overall population? Like, what are you going for?
It's really just I feel like I just try to reflect my own experiences at first. The more detailed comics, I guess, like detailed, it's like cartoon, but like are definitely my own experiences, the one that get a bit more personal. But a lot of the ideas come from people in my life where they're complaining. I always love listening when people complain because I'm like, oh, is there like a relatable post here? And so I always listen for that and just write it in my notes app. And a lot of people also message me about their experiences with trauma, mental illness, and that type of those like more heavy topics. And so I
Mhm.
try to put those themes into the comics as well, even if it's not my own experience, because it could help possibly someone who comes across it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like, when did you really start getting like DMs from people and like realizing like, wow, like this project is like really just kind of like bigger than me?
Um, there was one series post that I did that was more my own kind of personal story, and it was about conformity, and it was this red thumb, the main character, I guess, thumb,
Hmm.
and they were just watching everyone else had like blue was like a status symbol, everything good was blue, and so then they like got a paint bottle and then poured it over themselves and tried to become blue. And that did really well. I think that was like my first post to like super, super blow up. And I got a lot of messages after that of people interpreting it and like putting it into their own stories, I guess, within the context of their own lives. And it was just interesting to hear how I guess my that emotion of like wanting to conform with others and like feeling a bit isolated resonated with other people, but in totally different ways. And so that was when it kind of clicked for me that it could be something more than just myself.
Yeah, no, I think that's super cool. And I think what's cool about it is like different people have different interpretations of it. I think that's the coolest part about art is like it doesn't have to be like, oh, like it's this one thing. It's not like calculus where it's like the answer is this integral. Fuck
Right,
integrals.
right.
But
No,
like,
literally,
yeah,
I could
dude,
never understood it.
I'm doing it right now. It's the worst thing ever. But like it's you can have multiple different things like you were saying people just DM'd you all sorts of their different like experiences like when it comes to like that with like pouring the blue paint that could just be like with social status or like race or like any of these different things, you know, like assimilation. There's so much you could do with that. um
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So is I just want to take it back to like again more your origins is like is your family really creative or is it like are you like the odd one out that's like I make art and everyone else is like 9 to 5 grind, so it's like how does that work?
I'm not sure where I necessarily get it from. My mom says my grandpa because my grandpa really liked to paint,
Mhm.
but my parents, well, my parents aren't STEM people like most people in the Bay Area. My
Right.
dad owns a car shop. He's like a mechanic type of person. My mom, she's a teacher, and then my sister's super creative too, though. She does a lot of singing stuff. And yeah, I think we all just kind of go in our different paths, my family. And so I think that is what kind of put it into my head, like just try things and see what sticks.
Yeah. See, that's also awesome that like your parents weren't necessarily like the traditional kind of like engineer doctor roles. So there was like
Yeah.
it was already like occur to you like, oh, there's other options. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so I feel like a lot of kids in our particular part of the area don't really like have that. So yeah.
No,
Um,
yeah.
so I was like reading the captions for some of your thumbnail posts. Sorry, I'm going like all over the place.
No, you're
But
totally fine. I don't know if I'm coherent at all either.
no, you're
So you're
totally
good.
chill, bro. You're good. So I was reading the captions kind of like for your thumbnail post, and I was expecting like, oh, they're just gonna be like fun and like positive, and like yeah, that was some of them. But some of them are like straight up dark. Like you kind of like put a little bit of dark humor in there. I was like, oh shit, wasn't expecting it to take that sort of turn. Like
Okay, which ones in particular? Do
I
you have like an
I
example?
forget, but like there was
Hmm.
like one I was like swiping through, and like the last slide was like "fuck this shit," like all like
Right.
yeah. I thought that was hilarious. Um, but like so like where do you get this like sense of humor, this dark humor type thing from?
I don't know exactly. I think a lot of I think it's funny because a lot of cartoons that you watch as children, like you're like, oh my God, like there's a happy, positive message. But then when I'm older and rewatch the cartoons I did as kids, you realize that there's a lot of like undertones of just like angst and depression. There's like a lot of mental health that you didn't recognize as kids. And so I am not too great at like hiding those messages together, but
Hmm.
I really want to do that in the future, possibly with a different character. So I just kind of separate the two. So it feels a bit like disconnected, even though it's the same character, but finding a way maybe in the future to kind of bring those two together somehow would help. But honestly, the angst, I feel like also I'm just like a teen, so that definitely comes with it.
Yeah. No, I like it. Personally, I think it adds kind of like a unique element to it because I feel like a lot of these like cartoon posts that you see on the internet are like positive, happy butterflies dancing in the meadows in the rain. I
Yeah.
like this refreshing kind of take of like, nah, dude, fuck this. Sometimes life just sucks. So it's
No,
like,
yeah.
yeah, and I
I
think
100% agree.
yeah, for sure. I mean, like I thought it was hilarious. That's why I wanted to point it out. And
I'm
before
glad.
but before we like because I know there's like multiple different characters in this Thumb series, right? So you have like the main character, which is the Red Thumb. And I know you have like multiple different characters. Do you kind of want to like explain like your main characters and like what their personalities are?
Yeah, I really don't. So I did make a post where it's like, oh, like which like finger are you? Kind of in a sense. So I try to
Hmm.
associate emotions or like personalities to each finger that we have, even though the
Yeah.
thumb's on a finger. Like people always say that. Okay, I don't
Don't
know what that
sleep on the
come from.
thumb. That's what
I
you use to
know. Don't
text,
sleep on the
right? So
thumb.
like, come on now.
Yeah. But the main characters are really just that's kind of me, I guess. And then you have another thumbprint that's blue. That's kind of the I want to say the person. I guess thumb is it's. I want to say a love interest because I like to keep it open ended, whichever you think. If it's like platonic, romantic, etc. Um, but yeah, that's like a whole different thing of like relationships. And then you kind of have thumb's friend, which is a green circle that isn't really a thumbprint, and there's kind of there. Those are like the main three.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, to me, at least how I interpret it was that the green kind of circle is more so like your inner thoughts and not really a character in the real world. Almost like an imaginary friend, but I guess less creepy.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can interpret it however you want it with that.
Yeah. No, I liked because I know I saw that post and I like the ring because like it was like the ring is like super cloudy, loves their Instagram, pics, like that influencer
Yeah,
type vibe. And then I loved how like the middle finger was just like straight angst, angry. I was like, yes,
right,
I
right.
agree. I use that finger all the time when I'm angry.
I
So
know.
so
Same.
I like how each finger I never really thought of it like that, where it's like each finger has their own kind of personality, which is pretty cool. So I found that very creative. What's the pinky one? I forget which one that is.
I think the pinky one was actually the social media one that you're referring to, and then the ring was the blue one.
Oh, okay.
But it's like, yeah, I don't really use other characters too often,
Yeah.
but there was like yeah, the main
Okay.
one.
For sure. So like what kind of I'm just curious, like what kind of personality were you going for with like did you base it off of yourself? Did you like kind of base it off of people in your life? Like what was the vibe there?
It's definitely supposed to be me. Um, yeah, I think I know I like to really lead things up into interpretation, but when I was making it, it was with the intent that it was me. I think in the middle there, like as in like the middle of me making comics, it didn't really become me, but rather a projection of who I wanted to be was like a super happy and like bubbly person, but like I really wasn't that.
Hmm.
And so towards the end now in like the later comics, I'd say it's definitely more me and like who I am as a person.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting that like I see I like that how like the thumb has like gone through a journey almost like with you creating because like at first it was like kind of like you trying to figure it out and then it became like a projection like you were saying. So like at that point when it was like a projection, was it more so like you were trying to make content that was like you were kind of alluding to it earlier with like the followers, like were you just like trying to be like, oh, like what's gonna get hits, what's gonna get likes?
1000%. Definitely clout hungry for a hot sec. I was so obsessed with hitting 100K. I thought that was like such a cool number. I
Yeah.
was like, I really want that three digits. I want that 100. Um, and then when I hit 100K, I was going back from school, right from Monte Vista,
Hmm.
depressing campus, back to home. And then I was in my car and I was like, oh my God, like I want to text and drive. So I texted my friend before I left. I was like, hey, if I hit 100K, like text me. I ended up hitting it right in my driveway. And then when I hit it, I was like, oh my God, like I felt really good for a hot sec. And
Yeah.
I looked around and I was like, I'm alone in my car. Like no one cares. Like this is not anything I thought it would be. It changed nothing, essentially.
Hmm.
And so that's when it kind of clicked for me. I was like, really, um, there's not much meaning behind the numbers. I think it's like our responsibility as content people to make the numbers actual people. And so I'm more focused on building a relationship with, I guess, like my followers and stuff like that afterwards than before I did. So that's when the
Yeah.
comments also kind of changed to be a bit more personal.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, obviously I've never gotten to like the platform hits of like 100,000 followers, but like, I mean, yeah, like I do find myself definitely like, and even during like the podcast, like I'll like complain to my friends. I'm like, dude, my subs aren't going up. Like this fucking sucks. But they're like, bro, as long as you're putting out good content and just like I feel like you need to check yourself sometimes. Where it's like, as long as you're putting out content that's yourself and like you think will provide value and be authentic, like you're fine. It'll come with time. I feel like creators kind of tend to get caught in that loop where it's like monetization, like money, followers, like so
No, 1000%. And I think that for the people who say, oh, I don't care about numbers at all, like blah, 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 like it's like you're putting yourself out there. I personally believe that's almost like a pretentious way to look at things. It's so one dimensional where it's okay, like care about numbers, just not to be like devoured by the idea that your worth is associated with it.
mhm.
Like, I would even critique, stock people who invest in stocks who
Yeah,
literally just see numbers all day and just have their mood directly dependent on if the stock goes up or down.
yeah,
When it gets like really obsessive like that, I think it's toxic, but I think it's impossible to completely separate yourself from the numbers. It's just important to like try to, I
right.
think.
So Thumbpaint was initially anonymous. This was something I didn't know until like going back and like reading about it. So Thumbpaint was initially anonymous. What was like, did friends at school, were they like, oh my God, Brett, you got to check out this account, Thumbpaint? And you were like, I mean, I know, like, did you tell anyone? Like, what was that whole process like, keeping it anonymous?
Yeah, so I guess there was a bit pressure from my parents when I look back at it. So they would not want me to do anything but really like school or something that was something that they saw like real value in,
Hmm.
because I don't know, they just wanted me to be efficient with my time, which I appreciate, I guess. And
Yeah.
so when I started, I was like, I made the comments kind of in secret, like didn't really tell my parents, because I knew that if I didn't have like a certain amount of like followers, I guess, that they wouldn't respect the thing. They still
Right.
don't understand social media, I guess, which I totally understand.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to tell them until I had a certain number of followers. But I told a close couple friends after I hit like 5K. And then I started like slowly telling more people, I guess, as it got larger.
Hmm.
And then people just kind of found out afterwards.
Yeah, that's kind
Yeah.
of crazy, bro. That like you kept it secret from your parents for that long. Like that's
Yeah.
like, when did you finally sit down and tell them, like, Mom, Dad, I'm kind of a big deal.
Oh my God. No. Um, I told my mom first, and she was like, okay, have fun. And then she didn't care. But it's funny because my mom has a tradition. We're very, don't want to say it, whitewashed. And so
All
we
good.
have a lot of Christmas traditions. We had the matching PJs. We still have matching PJs every year.
Yeah.
And my mom gives me us an ornament every year. And so the one she gave me was like a screenshot of one of my posts. And then my dad's like, "What is that? Like, what is this ornament?"
Oh.
And then I had to tell him, and then that's how it kind of got out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's funny. I love that. That's great. I just know that like with my big ass mouth, I would, even if I had to keep this, like, first of all, it'd be impossible to keep this fucking podcast anonymous. Like I don't know if that would ever be a possibility, but like if I were to like just keep stuff anonymous, I don't think I could do it. That's an impressive feat, man. That's
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
I'll give you that. Um, but I guess like I was looking, Monte Vista has some great artists, man. You got ZHC too. I found out
Oh my
ZHC
gosh.
went to
Yeah.
Monte Vista like literally like 2 months ago. My friend was like, "Bro, this guy from Monte Vista has like 18 mil subs on YouTube." I was like,
Hmm.
No way. Stop kidding. And he showed me and I was like, oh my God. Like he
Yeah.
actually did go to Monte Vista.
No, he is insane. Oh my God. He's like, I don't mean his content. I like his content. I guess it's not like my vibe. It's
Yeah.
definitely for like a younger audience, but I so appreciate the grind and from where he started. It's funny. I'm actually trying to meet up with him in summer to see what we can do. But I mean, yeah, that's possibly something in the works. But I really
Dude,
appreciate
look at that,
him.
guys. You hear that? ZHC X
But
Brett this summer. Let's go. You know?
I
Let's
mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm definitely not the person to like chase for clout, but I just hit him up. Or, well, actually, I'm not gonna go into it. But I was like, oh, if you need help like on an art project, like just let me know because I know he does crazy stuff and always
yeah.
needs extra artists on hand.
Hmm.
And so I just like reached out. We'll see. But yeah,
You
it's
heard it here
crazy, and he's
first,
super
guys.
humble. He's a really humble person
Yeah.
too, which I really appreciate.
You heard it here first. But no, no, like I think I saw ZHC for the first time like 2 months ago, and I was like, at first, like I looked at his thumbnails and I was like, oh, this is definitely for 6-year-olds. And then I like clicked on it and I was like, this guy's insane. Like the level of talent that he has, like customizing iPads and like shoes and all of these things is like it's pretty crazy. Like I was just like in shock almost of like how good he was because I was like,
No,
wow,
yeah,
this is
it's
crazy.
crazy because I guess there is like a contrast between like the type of content and like the upbeat personality, like a lot of like random stuff blowing in your face, like when you're watching the videos.
Hmm.
But his art is actually insane. And I know he's done some serious stuff, I think, for like Marvel or DC, like before like all of this, really, like he was making comics like for like big people and he went to art school. I think he probably dropped out,
Yeah,
probably because I mean,
I mean,
but
I mean, he is one of like the bigger brands on YouTube right now. So
no, yeah, he literally I think helped host the what's the YouTube award stuff? I
I
don't
am not the right
know.
person to ask.
Yeah, but he did that. So I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Damn, dude, that's crazy. Because that was the first like person that came to mind when I saw your stuff. I was like, oh my God, does Brett know ZHC? Like that'd
Really?
be kind of cool. Like, little South Bay artist thing. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, uh, let's get into like the whole idea of like, do you ever get burnt out with art? Like, is it something where you're just like, sometimes you're like, dude, I want to quit so bad. This is so great. Like, you hit a wall. Do you ever hit walls?
I hit so many walls. I definitely hit a wall recently. I was honestly debating quitting Thumbpaint like probably 2 weeks before like I guess you reached out
Yeah.
because I do feel drained with it. I feel like I'm not growing as like an artist or person. I think just as a creator, I just got bored of it. But I do think that when you're a creative or just doing anything that requires a lot of like inspiration and thought process behind it, there's always a wall that you have to hit. And I find that if you just keep going and push yourself a bit further to get past that wall, there's always something on the other side, whether that's a cool opportunity or like a random brand deal or something like that that you really appreciate. And so I'm trying so hard to break past this recent wall, but
Mhm.
it's thick as fuck.
Yeah.
So see if we get through it.
Dude, no, I feel you on the walls thing, bro. I feel like I hit walls like every other week. I'm like, oh my God, I have no one else to interview. I'm tapped out. Like it's over.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, wait, oh, there's this guy. Oh, there's that guy. So it's like I feel like it does happen a lot. But like what's your usual process like to get through burnout?
Yeah, I so there are like tiny bits of I'm sure you go through this too, but like there's tiny bits of like inspiration where you're like, oh, everything's clicking for a hot sec, and you just have a
Yeah.
ton of different ideas that you just write down. And so I write those down, and I find that it's really important to have like discipline. Like, yes, you can have art block, but relying on spurts of inspiration to get you through long term is not a great way to survive in general. And so having discipline, being like, oh, I'm gonna make this comic on this day, I'm gonna execute this idea on blank, and just sitting down and being like, this hour I'm just going to dedicate to literally thinking, I just won't even look at anything else, is super important. Honestly, sounds super cheesy and like gung-ho, but meditation low-key helps. Like it, I thought it was kind of like, like I don't know if like that's my thing, but I tried it and like it kind of works, and I was surprised. So
Yeah.
that honestly did help.
Yeah. Like, do you ever feel like when you're burnt out with like straight up just making art, like, do you find that like maybe making like YouTube videos or like going on TikTok and doing TikTok stuff, is that like help you? Because I know you're like very multifaceted in terms of like content creating.
Yeah, I try to definitely do a lot of different things. I think that keeps me interested and in tune of just creating, because that's really just what I want to do at the end of the day is just create random stuff. I think even like professional artists, when they're tied down to a specific style or medium, it is like constraining. And just focusing on different projects at the same time really helps just kind of like cycle through it. Yeah,
No, I feel that. That's definitely that's burnout is real, guys, especially
it's
for creators.
real. Yeah.
Um, but like, have you how have you found like that transition? Because like, did you initially start out with like, okay, like obviously Thumb Paint was the OG, but like how did you kind of go from Thumb Paint to your other Instagram accounts to YouTube to TikTok? Like how is that transition kind of put into place?
The transition was for me, it wasn't necessarily like a transition rather than just like a different project in my mind. Like I completely separated them. But I guess I was just like, oh, I'm super bored of Instagram right now. I'll just try TikTok. And so I did like a completely different thing on TikTok. And that was entertaining for me. Like I was just making content, felt entertained by what I was making. Maybe that's self-absorbing, but I think I put out things that I enjoy. And if I don't like it, then I just won't put it out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I just enjoy the different forms of content creation across those different platforms.
Yeah. Do you just have like hella drafts sitting in like your computer? It's just like this
Oh,
is
yeah, like over a
horrifyingly bad.
thousand.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah.
No, I get that. I have many things that like I look on my when I go to edit and I'm just like, yeah, would I want to put that out on the internet? Maybe not.
Yeah.
So
I think, oh my God, that's funny you bring it up because I feel like when you have so much content just like sitting there, it's hard to sift through stuff and like find the motivation to like chip away at it.
yeah.
And then like at some point you just become like, oof, like is this good enough compared to like the other pieces of content? And
Mhm.
also like at what point does it matter if it's good enough? Because I guess perfectionism honestly does hinder growth in many
Right.
ways.
Right. Like I've heard that from so many creators where they're like, dude, like the thing, the video, like the song, the art that I didn't want to put out was the one that put me over like the hill.
Yeah,
Right. So it's like,
yeah.
it's almost like, okay, like when do I just say like, fuck it, I'm gonna put it on the internet? And when am I like, okay, this is actually legitimately trash. Like I don't, I don't
No,
want people
yeah.
seeing it. So it's like, it's weird. I haven't found that balance yet. I don't know if you have, but.
No, yeah. And like there's another quote that's like, oh, like people half as talented are you as twice as successful. Where
Mhm.
it's like they just put it out there and let other people decide because if you are your biggest critic, then you know, you'll prevent your growth the most.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
That's definitely true. Um, was there like any I'm just curious about this. Like, did you have like any secret formula in building Instagram, or do you like was it kind of just you being your authentic self, putting out comics, like, or like did you post a lot? Like, what was the formula there? Like, how did you kind of start to get that initial following there?
Yeah, so at the start, I was posting literally 3 comics a day. I did not care, like, if it was good or not. I just posted it if I thought about it, and I would tag people when I was posting, like, all the reposts, like, webcomic accounts and, like, on Instagram, and then
Mm-hmm.
they started reposting my stuff if they saw it and if they liked it, and I got super lucky, actually, because there was an account called Artists Relates who had, like, 100K at the time, and they would always repost my stuff for some reason because they were posting like 7 times a day.
Yeah.
Because there was 3 like admin they call themselves, and I'm actually friends with one of them now, which is kind of funny. But they reposted my stuff, and that really helped. But honestly, the grind at the start is the hardest part to
Yeah.
get the ball rolling.
No,
Yeah.
I feel that. That's like, yeah, for sure. I mean, posting like 3 times a day, that's crazy. That's like a college app extracurricular in itself right there,
Oh, it
man.
was. It was. Trust me, it was on my college app. 1000%.
Yeah. That must have been like the ultimate, like that's the thing that kids in our high school probably wanted the most. They were like, fuck, dude, Brett has that. Like,
No, it was actually kind of funny because people are like, "Oh, you're gonna write about that, right? You're gonna write about that in your essay?" And I'm like, "I did. It was my Common App essay." So it's funny too because when you get into USC, like or at least for me, I'm not sure with every admissions counselor, but I got an email from them and they're like, oh, like what really convinced me like, was thumb paint. And so I was like, that is so cool. Like it
Yeah. What?
literally was a
So it
thing. So
was
like
that. It was
it was
that got you
that.
in.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of. I guess that's at the end of the day, like that should be a lesson for everyone who's listening. Like that is it's shit you build or like shit where it's like I'm just doing this because I love it, and I'm just gonna write about it and see what happens. And literally, that's what happened with you, right? Like it's like
No, absolutely.
yeah, it's like
Yeah, and it's funny, sorry to cut you off.
no, you're good.
No, yeah. I never really thought about college admissions actually. It's kind of funny because I always thought I was gonna get recruited for soccer. I was like on that path to get recruited by like a good like school or whatever. Like
Hmm.
seven of my teammates went to Ivies. They play for D1. Like I was definitely trying to do that, and so I didn't really care about my SATs and stuff like that. And so literally, I was so happy because when I quit soccer, it was right before like um everyone was gonna get like signing to recruit, and I was like, you know what, fuck this, like I'm not gonna do this anymore. And so
Okay.
I thought that would ruin my chances of getting into college because I was like, I
Yeah.
had nothing else besides soccer at this point. But what got me in was something that I like really loved, which was
Okay.
art.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm just curious about your soccer stuff. Like, did you just like, were you like, was it more like athletic burnout? You were like, I've been doing this for 11 years. Like, I can't play anymore.
Yeah, it was that. Um, I honestly really like the sport. Like I miss it sometimes. I definitely
Yeah.
dream about it. I'm like just on the soccer field, but
Yeah.
I guess the environment was just too much for me. I felt like it was super restraining. It was very like cultish, boyish, like a lot of toxic masculinity, I guess.
Yeah.
I just couldn't really deal with that anymore, and so I had to remove myself
Yeah.
from that. But yeah, it wasn't like I was ever gonna want to go pro either way. So it was inevitable me quitting soccer. So I just
Yeah.
thought, why not now?
Yeah. That's awesome though. I mean, I admire people who play sports. Like that's the
They're
best.
so honestly, it's so cool. Like on college campuses, people idolize like the sports people.
I know, right? Like the athletes are the number one, man. I mean, a college
No, yeah,
campus, I idolize my look at the background. So,
I know.
you
I
know,
do see it.
it tells you who I idolize, and of course, he's not an athlete, but he's good too. Shout out Drake.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I was just curious, like in terms of your mediums, like do you kind of prefer digital art, or are you more of like the old school guy that's like, I'm gonna pull out the dark room, like the whole canvas and easel, straight up like traditional? Like, what's your vibe?
Yeah, so I'm starting to like traditional a lot more because I can actually like feel the paper. I feel like I'm a very
Hmm.
hands-on person, so it's difficult for me to like really connect with what I'm doing digitally. And also my eyes just always hurt because I'm always like on the freaking screen.
Yeah.
So I definitely moved away from that, but I still have fun with kind of both of them.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
feel that. I like the I don't know. I think there is definitely like something like you were saying, like the old school kind of just like feel like even with reading, right? Like I feel like a lot of
Yeah.
nowadays, like we do a lot of reading on like laptops and it's freaking annoying to just stare at the same screen. But like when you hold the book in your hands, it's definitely a different type of feeling there for
Yeah,
sure.
it's definitely a whole different experience. And even though there's so much you can do with like online stuff like that, I feel like just feeling like a book in your hand or just the paper is just so much more rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally get that. That makes way like I love that way more than like staring at a computer all the time. That's why I'm like the kids who have Kindles, I'm just like, dude,
I know.
how? Like it's so hard at a certain point. It's just like you should really stare at that thing for hours on end. Like it would hurt my
Yeah.
eyes.
It's crazy too because like the Kindle stuff like that, they're like, oh, it feels like paper. Like you're reading it almost like it's paper. I'm like, oh, then just like get the paper maybe.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know?
Like, but I do get the cost effective thing. It's definitely
No,
better.
yeah, the environment,
Yeah, environment, how it be.
environmentalism.
Exactly. I mean, speaking of environmentalism, I know Thumb Paint has done like you've talked a little bit about like kind of more worldwide issues from what I saw. Like I know you've talked a little bit about body positivity, kind of racial injustice, self-care, that type of stuff. Like what kind of empowered you to do that? Because like talking about politics is like usually like with these big art accounts or even big creators tend to like stray away from like like we're not going to talk about that, like obviously now it's changing, right? But like
Right.
usually like it's like like there's a line between what we create and then what's going on in the real world, but you've kind of like broken the fourth wall a little bit. Kind of talk about that.
Yeah, it's a very touchy subject, honestly. Like, this is the stuff that people like clip and cancel you for. Luckily, I'm not big enough to cancel. Like, I don't like
Yeah.
it'd be like that. But um, yeah, I just felt really. Mm, I felt like I was informed enough to talk about the subject. I feel like I was passionate enough to make something that was authentic, and I did enough research and asked people who dealt with those issues with the whether it was like racial injustice or like body image issues to make posts that I felt like did represent that community well or help. 'Cause I did one for Black Lives Matter that was more about being
Hmm.
an ally. And so I felt like that was something I could speak on because obviously I have never had the Black experience in America. And so I would never be able to speak upon that experience, but just understanding how
Right.
to be a better ally and stuff.
Hmm.
I find that it's a super slippery slope though, because once you talk about one thing, people really push you to talk about everything.
Yeah.
And at some point, it becomes almost obviously there. I'm trying to kick my words carefully because I don't want anything to come across insensitive. But at some point, it's not on the creators agenda to talk about everything because I feel like if you're a consumer, you choose what information you're consuming. And if all you're getting your news sites from are these big influencers who just dance, do makeup, or just do art, is not beneficial for you. And you should really just go to like a reputable news source, like news
Right.
site, rather than getting your information from content creators. But um, I think it's still nice though to see that representation in a different space than just news.
Yeah, no, I totally feel you on that, man. When it comes to like creators, like I feel like yes, there is a certain responsibility for these big creators to kind of really show like what like you have a platform, you have a certain responsibility, you know? Like you have to like when stuff is wrong, like you should definitely call that out. But I don't think every single day should be another political comment or another political YouTube video or like this, that, and the other, because then you get niched down into this whole like political rabbit hole, which is just and once you go too far down that rabbit hole, it's hard to come back. Like, so
Yeah,
yeah,
and you can't have a wrong opinion really about anything.
for sure.
And even though there, I think it's funny because on TikTok you get down to this echo chamber of like your For You page because the algorithm is so specific to what you like.
Yeah.
And so if you're like a Republican, you're on Republican TikTok. If you're a liberal, you're on ultra liberal TikTok. And it's just the echo chamber of like, oh, you think you're right at some point. And so I guess you just like homogenize your thought processes and everyone is thinking the same in these different extremes. And I'm starting to see it where I'm like, oh, like I thought I was like super liberal because like Bay Area, like yeah. And then I see other people and I'm like, oh, like if you don't like complete communism, like you're a terrible person. I'm like, oh, am I a bad person? Maybe, but not because of that, you know?
Yeah. Dude, no, I feel you on that, on those echo chambers. They're pretty crazy, man. I've been down some TikTok rabbit holes myself. Oh, some interesting experiences, bro. Like, I mean, you just like sometimes I'll be scrolling through and I'm just like, how did I get here? Like,
Yeah.
what did I like? What did I comment on to get to this point?
No, yeah.
Like, it's like, oh man, it's very interesting. But like I know I've kind of asked you this multiple times in different ways, but like, what's your kind of end goal with Thumb Paint? And I know you were talking about like, dude, I just wanted to quit 2 weeks ago, but
I know.
like, what's your goal with it? Like, how do you kind of see it playing out further? Because obviously, you're out of kind of high school and you're into this kind of new chapter of your life. How do you see Thumb Paint like playing a role moving forward?
I think Thumbpaint will always be like my first project that I'm super proud of. Hopefully, I can like extend beyond that character and move towards bigger and hopefully better projects that I'm more proud of. In terms of evolving actually Thumbpaint, I'm starting to try to dabble in more animation to see like what more can I do with this character, like how far can I stretch it, and maybe like developing actual like physical products with it. Even though that sounds like sellout, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but just different forms of them would be ideal.
Yeah, no, for
Yeah.
sure. And I was gonna ask you, like, is doing art like for a living the dream? Is that like your absolute like that's what I want to do? Like that's
Absolutely. The dream is art. The backup is using that comm degree, to the little length it will get me. So
Yeah. No, dude, I think it communicate I think this whole idea of like, oh, communication degrees are useless, like, nah. Like honestly, it's not that. I disagree with that whole notion that they're useless. I don't think they are. Because why
yeah,
would
I
people
don't
be getting
know.
them? Like
Exactly. Yeah.
but yeah. I no, I think it's broad though, which is like, like you could get into like whatever like field, as a backup. But that's backups. We don't talk about backups here. We only plan A or
I
bust.
know.
Yeah. Plan A or bust,
No,
Brett.
that's the mentality though,
Yeah.
really. If you have a backup plan, I feel like you'll just gravitate towards that backup plan because of
Right?
security. Yeah, and
Exactly.
that's you won't go further than that.
Oh man. Yeah. Damn. But you're a USC student, so you're already just like ahead of 98% of the population in the world. So
It's
good job.
not top 25 though, so not good enough for Silicon
Stop.
Valley.
Oh my
Is
lord.
it Harvard
USC, if
though?
USC is not top 25, it's definitely like 25 and a half or 26. So it's
Yeah, I
right up
don't
there.
know.
Yeah, it's very good. Um, I was gonna ask you, do you think there are stereotypes for art majors? Like, I'm just curious. Like,
Oh, 1000%.
yeah.
Like the interesting hair, the jewelry, the makeup. And because I think in like the art world, a lot of it is dissenting against like capitalism, the social norms, like going against
Right.
everything. And so I guess that culture too is, I mean, there's something to say about like stereotypes too. I don't think stereotypes are flat out wrong because how would people like come to these conclusions
Mm-hmm.
necessarily? Um, but I think it's almost empowering to be an art major because you kind of have like a card, like a write off to kind of just do what you want and be like, oh, he's an art major. Like it makes sense. You know what I mean?
I
So I'm like,
love
okay,
that.
that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I'm an art major, man. Oh, makes sense.
No, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Damn. Do you kind of feel like sometimes you don't fit into that stereotype and like a lot of your friends are, they have like the blue hair or like the jewelry and you're like, oh, like, like I do you feel like you don't fit in sometimes or is it like you feel good with your art major friends?
No, yeah, I haven't actually met a lot of art majors yet because I haven't like been on campus, but the people I have met, they're definitely more exciting than me. I'm definitely really boring. I don't have much of my clothes. I only wear like black and white and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So I definitely feel like I need some catching up to do, but at the same time, like this is what I'm comfortable with and this is what I like. So I'll just keep doing that.
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
for sure. Uh, I was going to ask you, and I realized I didn't say my essential question at the beginning of this intro. So the essential question, an hour into the podcast, LOL, is how has art helped you? So Brett has done a very good job answering that. A++ job so far.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
There you go. But why do you think it's art that fulfills you? Like, what is it about art where you're like, I feel creatively fulfilled? Because it's like a lot of creators I know have this like toxic or like weird relationship with their art, like whether it be like filmmaking or writing or like podcasting, or whatever, where it's like, I feel so burnt out by it. I feel this, I feel that, but it's like when you're making it and everything is clicking, like it just feels like the greatest thing in the world. So kind of like go into that a little bit. Like, why do you think it's art that fulfills you?
No, yeah, I think that's it right there. It's just like such a toxic relationship with such high highs and such low lows,
Right?
where it's like you honestly just hate yourself so much for making art, and then you look back at something, you're like, oh, like I literally never gonna make anything again, like I quit. And then you just find like these bursts of inspiration and just seeing it go from idea and just it manifesting in like the physical world, like on the paper, I think is the most like rewarding part of the whole experience because for me, I know I'm trying more to enjoy the process of creating art, but really to me right now, like I'm just looking at the finished product, and if I feel like I like the finished product a lot, if I am proud of it, which is kind of rare, I feel like super good and like I did something, I feel productive. But obviously, it is like a never-ending cycle of just wanting to make the next thing. But I think that honestly, it's kind of like metaphorical for, I guess, life in a sense. It's like, why do anything? You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
For
There's
sure.
like no point really if there's like a inevitable end. And so at that point, it's just to do what you want to do. And then for that, I guess it's just art for me.
Yeah. No, I feel it. I mean, different people gravitate towards different things, and it's like it's the most toxic relationship in the world. But like
Yeah,
it's like when you get it, it's like holy shit. Like that's
it's
it.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Best feeling ever.
best
Um
feeling ever.
so I saw your video. I think it was like your USC portfolio piece video on YouTube. By the way, go subscribe to Brett on YouTube. He's chilling.
Thank
But
you.
but I saw that piece and it's amazing. I mean, I loved it. I think it was very well done. It's beyond the scope of anything I have any talent in. Talk about that piece a little bit. I don't know, because you had a temporary title, which I've already forgotten. But I really liked it, and I really liked the kind of video concept that you went for, which was like, I'm going to tell the story behind it. So kind of talk a little bit about that.
For sure. Hold on, I'm gonna plug in my Mac really quick
Yeah,
because
you're
I
all
think
good.
this outlet, like, I think is broken.
Yeah.
I think it's literally broken. So that's a college dorm for you.
You're seeing it right here, guys.
Okay, it's working. It's working.
There you go.
8%.
Yes.
Okay. Um, yeah. So you're talking about the soccer painting of like it's a huge ass head and like
Yeah, and the thank you bag over the head.
yeah. So that one, it definitely reflects like my experience on like the soccer team. Um, I'm so sorry. What was the question?
No, it was just like, what does that like piece mean to you? Because you did a really good job explaining it in that video of just like the story behind the piece and all that stuff. So
No, yeah. So for I guess the people who are like listening and like aren't able to actually see the piece, essentially it's me with a big ass head and I'm looking at people playing soccer and packing up. And there's a one other character which is supposed to be me with another huge ass head, but it's wrapped in a thank you bag,
mhm.
holding some cones and like a ball next to it. And so for me, there was always at the end of soccer practice, everyone's supposed to help pick up the balls, pick up the cones and whatever. And usually the person who does that is like the person who played shitty that day, the person who like pissed off the coach or whatever. But for me, I always felt like I put myself in the position to just pick up the cones voluntarily. And I always wrote it off as like, oh, I'm just like trying to be like a better person, whatever. Like someone has to do it, I'll just do it so no one else has to. And my dad would always ask me, he's like, why are you the one to always pick up the balls and cones? Like, why are you the one? Because it is essentially like supposed to be a degrading job in a sports team, especially with like a
Right.
hierarchy like that.
No, I got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so I was like, why am I doing this? And looking back, I think part of it was because I never felt like I really fit in. I was the, I think the only full Asian person on my team at one point,
Hmm.
and that was pretty isolating in itself. Because in the Bay Area, everyone's basically Asian, and
Right,
so
right. I
I
mean,
never really
I know where you
saw.
grew up, like 80% Asian high school, Monte Vista, to like
Yeah,
100% white soccer team. Like, yeah, that's a difference.
no, it's a complete 180. And
Yeah,
so I thought I just had a difficult time navigating that experience. And so I found myself like putting myself down on like those lower positions to do it. And I guess like the thank you bag was supposed to be like imagery relating to, I guess, Asian culture, because a lot of that thank you bag, you see it from like Chinese takeout. Even I'm
right.
Korean, I think that still like is applicable to like Asian culture.
Hmm.
And so I just put that there.
Yeah. No, I'll put the piece over this part of you talking, so they'll be able
Okay,
to see it.
perfect.
Yeah, so they'll be able
Yeah.
to see the big ass heads as you described it. Um,
Yes.
yeah, no, but it's a super like awesome piece. I loved, like, I think it was just very like relatable. I think it will be relatable to a lot of the audience too, which is super cool. Um, and so you use that to apply to USC Art School, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I mean, look at that, Brett got in. So
Yeah.
it
We'll
is a
see.
good piece.
Possibly. Possibly.
Oh,
Maybe
you're
they didn't
still
like that one.
applying.
Oh, no. Sorry. No, I got in, but I'm just
Okay.
wondering, like, it was like there were a lot more pieces, and I'm not sure if they liked that one.
Oh,
I thought it would be like an iffy one to put in, but
yeah.
I liked it, so I just put it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it was like thumb paint, man. It's just like you got to just put it out there, and sometimes it just
Just
works.
gotta put it out there.
Yeah. So I'll give you two more questions. And I'll let you go because I know you're a busy man making a lot of art. So you're doing big moves. Um, so I know you show like a lot of like different, because like I went and like went on a Brett content binge, so to speak. And I know you show like kind of different types of your personality through like different pieces of like, or different social media mediums almost, and different types of content. So like kind of talk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of just different sides of me that are pulling in different directions with each social media platform. I think on YouTube, because it's a longer form content, even like a podcast, like you have more opportunity to show how you are throughout like the day and
Right.
like your personality is like just regular basis. But on TikTok, I feel like you have just so much time, like a really small amount of time to show like and to catch people's attention essentially.
Mhm.
And so I think it's more so just kind of playing on different parts of my personality that are more exciting out there. Um, yeah, I think at first I thought like, oh my god, I'm being so fake. Like this is some fake shit. Like just like randomly doing shit for different platforms. But I heard another person comment on it being like, no, it's honestly just like social media literacy. Like if you're trying to grow, like you're gonna communicate the way other people communicate on those various platforms.
Right.
I like that better than being a fake ass bitch. So I'm gonna say it's for social media literacy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Social media literacy, guys. You heard it here first.
yep.
I had a question in mind I was gonna ask you. Damn, I forgot. Um, and what is my last? Oh, I was gonna ask you. Do you have like any advice for like the young artists out there, the three youngins that have gotten to this point of the podcast because their attention span has probably shifted to other things in the world? But what's your advice to the young guns who are trying to make it in art and be you?
Yeah, honestly, just do art, constantly create, never stop creating. I think creating anything is the most important part, being consistent or at least trying to, and hopefully finding, discipline in all the madness.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
last thing is, do you have any questions for me? What like I know that's really fucking selfish, but
No,
I
no,
I
not
like
at
I
all.
like doing this thing where I sometimes when I remember to just like ask people like if they have any questions for me, if they want to know anything or ask anything. What do you want? Because this is your
Yeah,
this is your time right here. So
love that.
yeah.
I guess what's like the long-term goal, I guess, with the podcast? Like just for fun, hobby to
Yeah.
career.
No, this is career. Like this is plan A. Like I was saying, like this is plan A or bust. I'm going to school for, different things, but I have gotten to the point in my life where I'm like, I cannot see myself working in an office for a
Yeah.
9 to 5 job and, doing that Monday through Friday. Like I genuinely cannot see that. And now I'm at the point where I'm just like, I need to build something. I'm 20 years old. Like I've tried with different things in high school, didn't work out. And so it's like, fuck it. Like let's see where this goes. And this is my plan A, or I go big or go home. So
No,
that's it.
yeah, that's the mentality to go with,
Yeah.
honestly. And there's so much time to fuck up in like the early 20s when I was saying
Right.
it's like you literally have so much time to rebuild yourself and reinvent. Like just go for it.
Yeah.
And so I love that
Yeah.
attitude.
And like that's honestly just been like my mentality since I was like a kid. Like everything I've done has just been like, all right, like I'm gonna go big and go home. I'm afraid that I'm gonna be like 45 and I'll be like, fuck it, I'm gonna go for it. And I'm gonna be like, oh,
Yeah.
you're already a fucking failure. So why are you going for this again? But that's my biggest worry. But honestly, I just have a feeling that this is gonna work out. Like I always have. So I'm just gonna keep pushing through and see what
No,
happens.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where it all goes.
Yes.
See if we
I
both make it, what
Dude, we're
happens.
gonna do like a 5-year revisited episode. You already count on it.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah, when you blow up and when Thumb Paint becomes like a TV show on Nickelodeon or ABC, I'll be like, dude, I knew him. He blew up. That's what's up. I got him before everybody else did. So
For
you
sure.
best believe your first press is gonna be this podcast. So
Absolutely. I'll
all
make that
right.
happen.
Yes. All right. Thank you. And with that, thank you so much, Brett, for coming on the podcast. I'm going to link all his social media down below so you can go check out all his various pieces, his amazing YouTube vlogs where he talks about his boba addiction and his addiction
Yes.
to everything bagel seasoning, which by the way is incredible. Everything bagel seasoning. I agreed
So
with you. When you
good.
said that,
So
I,
good.
I, I paused the video and I was like, this is very true. It is.
Yeah.
So go check them out. I'm going to be linking all that down below, but this podcast is over. So thank you, Brett, for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I hope you guys enjoyed that candid conversation with Brett about the relationship between creators and their craft, as well as, learning a little bit about Brett's, so far amazing career and his webcomic. I hope you guys all enjoyed this conversation about art and what it means as well. I've linked all of Brett's stuff down below, including his social media, both Thumbpaint and his both Thumbpaint and the link to it, as well as his personal account. And I've also linked his TikTok and YouTube down below, so go give Brett a subscribe on YouTube. Go give him a follow on TikTok. Instagram on both his webcomic account and his personal one. If you're really into art, he is on the come up. And Brett is super active with it. He's always doing something on each one of his channels. So make sure that you go check him out. You don't want to miss it. Fellow Bay Area content creator, we always got to support. Also with me, if you guys like this episode of the podcast, feel free to leave it a like down below, subscribe, hit me with the follow. That would be awesome. And I've also linked my social media down below so that you guys can stay updated if you want and follow me with what's going on with podcasts and stuff of that nature. The quarter is ending, so that means more content is coming soon, which is exciting. And so get pumped for that, even though summer school is on the rise. So let's see how that goes. But anyway, I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode with Brett. It was a lot of fun to make. It was a lot of fun to talk to Brett. He's super cool. He's awesome. And yeah, again, hope you enjoyed. More coming soon. And have a great one. Peace.